kind of the format we're going to do this morning is we are going to walk you through a series of questions and some of the attributes of being a faithful man. Not a perfect man. If you look up here, you're going to see a group of faithful men in the church, in their families, their homes, whatever, right? And so, again, not perfect, but faithful. Keep pushing the hand to the plow and moving forward. Well, Bill might disagree, but anyway. A little bit about men in general. So there are 360,000 evangelical churches in the U.S. 80% of those churches have a functioning women's group. 80%. Group gets a little smaller when you look at the men's group. It goes down to 7%. 7%. I know I've given that fact before, but it really puts something to it when you think about that today as we're facing so many difficulties in the world. It's because of a lack of fathers, right? There are men out there, there are a lack of true fathers that have the father's heart. So when you look at that number and you think about it, that's 7%. And even that 7%, you look about how many people actually attend in those groups. And it's typically 1% of the population of that 7% that actually even attend men's groups. So we're very blessed, and we're an anomaly here at Faith Church because we have about 50% of our men who attend our men's functions. So that means better dads, better husbands, better workers, better attendees, better everything, if you look at that from a very high level about what that means to the community, what that means to our church and our families. So you should pat your husbands on the back and encourage them as they say, hey, I'm going to go to a men's breakfast. I'll be going for an hour and a half. Or I'm going to go do a service event down at the mission. Or I'm going to work on another church. Or I'm going to be doing something else with the men's group. You should really applaud them and encourage them to continue to do that because that only grows and strengthens them and it strengthens your family. So we're going to do, again, a series of questions here, and again, about the attributes of being a faithful man and what that looks like. Each one of my guests up here today will give a little bit of their thoughts about what that looks like from their worldview. Everything is going to be a little different from every person, but it's really important that we realize that when we look at faithful men, we look at them being a copy of God, right? He's our example of father and what that looks like, and we're all striving to be like him, and we want to bring him into our lives to reach others so we be an extension of him. So many times people are judging God on their biological father that maybe wasn't that great, and so they feel like that example would be what the Heavenly Father looks like. And we know that's not true here, but we have to be able to use those attributes and share those among our peers, colleagues, everybody else out in the world. So I'll start with our first question. Anybody can chime in as we go, but when we look at a faithful attribute, the first thing I want to talk about is being a faithful husband.
I'll go ahead and start. Tom Bach is my name, in case you don't know me, but as far as a faithful husband, I was somebody who got married later in life. I was 40 years old before I ever got married. And at that time, I walked into, I had a stepson at the time who was about 12, 13 years old, so that was a new thing. But as far as a faithful husband, this is how I see it. When you marry, especially later in life, you're marrying into that family, you're accepting anything with that family. There was a mother-in-law who we were taking care of, and she actually, she got older, she needed care. And you all knew my brother-in-law, Frank. We kind of helped take care of him, and then we had our son. And I think you just have to accept all that's going to come with that and be faithful to it, because as my mother-in-law started to age and go downhill, we had to take care of her. She actually came to live with us for, the last 3 or 4 years of her life, and that took a lot of work. It was just, I'd get up at night, you'd help, take care of her, help care and take care of her, and things like that. So faithful husband is, I guess you just got to buy into the whole package. Whatever it comes, you got to deal with it. And like Frank, he was a good guy. He helped us a lot, did a lot of errands. You all met him, you knew what kind of guy he was. But There was times he'd be trying with you. You had to have patience. But we did it, got through it, and we're glad we got him here, and he got to find Christ and all that. So I guess a faithful husband, you got to buy the whole package, whatever it is, and then just accept it and help out your wife the best you can at that time.
Thank you, Tom.
Hello, y'all. My name is Mike Singleton, in case some of you don't know me. Faithful husband doesn't always mean not cheating on your spouse.
There you go.
Just helping out, being there. So, there you go.
That's great.
To me, a faithful husband, being faithful with your eyes. I was talking to Talia last night, and there's a statistic that said 1.8 billion more views of pornography than Amazon, Netflix, all combined. I don't know if it was daily or monthly, that people are visiting those sites 1.8 billion times more than they are Amazon. Think of how many times you go on Amazon or Netflix. God commands us to be faithful with our eyes. So it's not something you can make an excuse for, guys, because God says, I gave you everything you need for godliness. You have it.
Well, I can just say I agree with all that. A faithful husband to me is again, it's been said, and Mike, I hope we don't all break down like that, but I'm sure it's going to be close sometimes. You buy into the package. I also got married later in life. Was actually the second time, and you buy into her family, and she buys into yours, and you come from different things. I basically have been in this church for 40 years, so she had to learn, and she was a Catholic, so she had to learn a lot of things that were different, and I knew I couldn't just say, you will do this. It had to be something that she bought into, and for all you that know her, I think you could probably agree she bought into it. So I don't know if it had anything to do with that, but if I did, I would say that's part of being a faithful husband.
Good. So I think as Mike mentioned, it's not just the being there and not cheating. There's so much more involved with being a faithful husband, right? It's your eyes, that Gary mentioned. It's your emotional presence, right?
Yes.
Being there. And we're all, I definitely would say that's a personal, something I'm striving to get better at, right? Being emotionally present, but it's more than just that to be a faithful husband. It's respect, it's honoring, right? It's honoring your wife, it's honoring her family, it's honoring everything that they bring into, as you guys have mentioned. It's being something more than just that initial breadwinner and somebody who says that I've provided you with a house, I've provided you with the monetary funds, but it's more than just that. And again, I mentioned earlier, we're not perfect, except for Bill, but we're faithful in that. And a faithful man doesn't quit. Sees these faults, sees these failures as a husband, and moves and strives to get better, right? Treats his wife with dignity, honor, respect, perseveres. You look at the statistics of marriages that are failing, and it's just constantly that statistic rises, right? Where divorce continues to go. And it's so easy today just to say, I'll just quit. And then you look at the reasons why, and the people just not really interested in that other person after a short period of time or whatever, or something hard came up and they didn't persevere. They didn't push through. And it starts with that husband saying, I'm going to be there no matter what. I'm going to push through, being faithful as an action. So I appreciate your guys' answers. I think it's, anybody follow up? Are we good? Okay. All right, so we have an example of that, obviously, of Christ. He loved his bride, right? And you think about all the failures his bride had, and he didn't quit us, right? Stuck faithful to us, gave everything he had, spiritually, physically, emotionally, in his life for us, stuck with us the entire time. So, faithfulness, it's not just about avoiding betrayal. It's about nurturing love, building unity, building a safe space for your family and for your wife's heart where she can rest at in that space. All right, second one. Tell me about being a faithful employee. Faithful employee.
Well, I think it's what we always say, you do everything as if you're unto God. You know, you want to be a good employee, you're working your job, you work, you get paid, and you need to be reliable, but you also need to be an example while you're out there in the workforce, you know. You kind of set the example for people, and I know, Mike, as I started in mine, Mike works in mine, and when I started, I was like 19 years old, and when you went into the time at and then there was kind of a respect for the older people that worked there. You looked at them as people that would train you. They had wisdom. And as I got older and stayed and working in the mine, and what I went back to that, if those people, you went in and you worked, and they wanted you to help them or go with them, you felt that as an honor because you had earned their respect. You weren't treated as a young kid anymore. And I think that has changed a lot in the workplace where these kids now come in, you might have heard this, we call them either 20-20s or 30-30s. 20 years old and 20 years experience, or 30 years old and 30 years experience. You know, and you've got to deal with that. They come in, they read things, and they think, old man, you don't know anything. So that's something you deal with. And a quick story how you can touch people in your job. There's a guy I used to work with. He was on a mine rescue team with me at work, and I worked with him. And then actually, after I was a supervisor at MSHA, he came and be one of my employees. So one morning he comes into my office, closes the door. He sits down and he wanted to tell me about his daughter, who was in college, was expecting a baby, and she wasn't married. And I thought, okay. So we sat down and we talked about what the plans were. He said they were going to get married. She was going to continue in college, and kind of discussed it. I never expect this person to talk to me about that. So after it was kind of over and he was going to leave, and I said, why did you feel that you could come talk to me about this? I kind of feel honored, or though you say that you did. He said, well, I always thought of you as a second father. I would have never thought that, but it's just how you touch people's lives that you don't realize you are at the time. And that's just one little thing I wanted to say.
I'd say, I've had so many opportunities to witness to people at work. I've heard some people say, like, how do you do it? You feel like you want to, wear a Jesus t-shirt when you go to work. You got to wear it on your heart first, and in your actions and in your decisions. And if you can do that, it'll open doors up. And I've had guys come in my office, and I got to pray with them, and it's people you'd never see come in here. Actually, one guy, I haven't got to meet with him yet. He came to my office. I worked with him for a couple of years. He was like, I'm having surgery. So I pray for him. The Holy Spirit's like, you got to pray for him. I'm thinking, man, he's going to think I'm crazy. So I told him, hey, I said, let me pray for you. So he said, okay. I prayed for him. His mom ends up dying. He asked me to do the funeral for his mom. And I thought, I can't do this. There's no way, And so I prayed, and I thought, okay. He told me, he said, Mom was religious, and he was like, she would have wanted this. Ended up doing that. This guy ended up getting saved. I couldn't believe it. I still haven't got to meet him or have lunch with him, but there's so many opportunities at work, you know. You have to get them to start asking you, hey, why are you different? I don't know if it was Billy Graham or John Kelly that said, you know, preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. Your life is the gospel.
Being a good employee, like Tom said, I work in a coal mine, so if you've been around a bunch of coal miners, they aren't the most clean-mouthed people in the world, you know. So I've noticed in where I work at that if I'm on a job, the foul language has toned down some, well, a lot actually, because they know that I come to church. I told my bosses I need Wednesdays off. I got to be out on time on Wednesdays, and Thursdays at the choir and stuff like that. So, you know, being in your job and letting people know that you are in Christ, it does turn them. You know, it starts to change them. And some guys even start to call me preacher. I don't know why, but they do. But so, you know, and you don't have to be in the coal mines. You can be a cab driver, bus driver, security guard. You know, don't be afraid to sit up and tell and talk about the Bible and Christ and how it's changed your life. So you can do it too if I can, trust me.
I just want to add one thing there. Kind of what I noticed, like Mike said, that if you start acting a certain way, people notice it. I mean, like you said, you're around the coal miners, you hear the profanity and things, and I won't say I'm perfect. I let things slip a long time ago or at times, you know, but, you know, since I've been coming to church here, you kind of get convicted. As soon as you do say something, it pops in your head, you know, I got to confess for this, I'm sorry. And you quit doing it. And I've had people at work say, man, I don't hear you say things that you used to say before. They do notice little things like that. It's amazing what they're open and aware to, or what they're aware of.
Yeah, I'm not perfect, am I, Alex? I first of all, being a good employee, you know, what everybody said, these are true things. People where I work come up to me and say all the time, put so-and-so on your prayer list. I want you to pray for this person. I want you to pray for this person. I got to the point to where, and I hope this is something that you all can do too, no, we're going to pray right now. Who is it? What's the problem? Let's pray right now, me and you. And I think that works better. But when I got this question, I looked at this from a standpoint of a father and being an employee, how you act around the house about your job. You know, I don't run around saying, man, I love my job, I love my job, I love my job, or anything like that. But I get up and go to work every day. I stay there as long as they need me. Maybe I don't feel good, and I still go because that's the way my dad did it. And I hope that that's what my kids remember.
It's good. So I'll segue a little bit into what Bill was saying there. When we look at that, we start off with, what does an employee that's bad look like, right? A not faithful employee shows up late, calls off all the time, not dependable, may not work his full time on the clock, maybe doing something else, right? We have so many areas we could get distracted at work today. It's pretty easy to be spending a lot of your time doing something else. And you can see those things when you go to different places where you buy something, you know, especially when they're public facing, when you go buy things and you know that person is just miserable in their job and just tells on their countenance and just, ugh. So a faithful employee is someone who's not there just for a paycheck, right? So again, I look back at, I think you mentioned it earlier, Tom, about we're in a different generation now with work where people don't stay at jobs nearly as long as they used to, right? Earlier generations, when you got a job, you're pretty much guaranteed to stay there the rest of your life unless that company closed or something shut down. That's just how it worked. You came to work every day, you showed up, and that was the end of the story. Statistics now, it's 3 to 5 years people change jobs, every 3 to 5 years. And so they're looking at that thinking, there's no buy-in. I've never given my all to this place. So what do I have to lose when I do leave, or what does that look like? And so, and that doesn't mean you can't switch jobs. I'm not trying to be a condemnation. I'm just saying that's the way it's viewed out there today. I worked for the government for the last 28 years, and I've been able to really rise in areas. And some of these things that I've learned from my parents were about being on time, being faithful to that particular job you were doing, even if it wasn't the best job, even if it wasn't something that was, in the world's view, something great. You look at a lot of successful people now that own businesses, the majority of them will tell you that they started sweeping the floors, working in the bookstore. They were janitors. They were people who greeted you at the front door, made your shake out there, your ice cream or something like that. And there was some faithfulness there, and somebody saw that, and so they promoted them. When we first started this Iron Men's movement, I started with Pastor Tim, and it was just, hey, we're going to meet here on Wednesday mornings before you go to work, and we're going to pray for an hour. We did that for a year and a half. And I learned from him because he would work here cleaning the toilets, running the vacuum cleaner here, and you see where Pastor Tim is now today, leading and guiding men. So I used him as an example and just showed up and prayed with him. I had no idea that what the men's movement would evolve to, or that I'd even be a part of it, but I wanted to be a part of what he was doing. So I attached myself to him and was faithful in that work there. So it's not just about, like Bill said, it's not coming home and saying, I love my job. It's that my boss can count on me. I'm going to put in a full 8 hours work. If they need me extra, they know they can always count on me. I'm going to come to Pastor Bill because I know he'll, no matter what time it is, he won't say, my clock's done, I'm over with. You got to catch me on those at 7 to 3 time. After that, I'm done. That's not what a faithful employee is, right? Always faithful to be there. Dependable, hardworking, trustworthy. These are the attributes. And again, this is the way Jesus, he showed us, right? Dependable, hardworking, trustworthy. All right. Let's go into a touchy subject here. A faithful tither. What does that look like to be a faithful tither?
I already mentioned my wife. She likes to be mentioned. When we got married, like I said, she was a Catholic and she didn't tithe. I've pretty much tithed my whole life. So I thought this is going to be a tough conversation, you know, talking about finances and things like that. So I told her, I said, you know, I've always tithed, and I think that we should continue to tithe, no matter what. If the things look tough, whatever it is, we should still continue to tithe. She said, okay. We were talking about this the other night, and I hope my wife, again, let me go back. She's such a great example and everything. She's worked at the credit union for almost 25 years, a little more than 25 years actually, and she started out like at just a little over minimum wage. Now she's a vice president, and she makes almost as much as I do, and she works hard. She puts in the time. She puts in the effort. She puts all that in. Those are great examples for my kids. And even though this is Father's Day, you know, shout out to mothers. If you think, you know, she put in the time, she put in the effort, but if you think tithing didn't have anything to do with that, I don't know. We are where we are because we tithe. And I told Alex the other night when we were talking about it, I said, I hope if you guys got nothing else from us, that you got that.
It's good.
Well, kind of building on what Bill said, I was raised as a Catholic, and I never heard of tithing. I mean, they did not talk about the 10% or anything like that. You just kind of gave what you wanted to give. And then once, we started coming to church here, I mean, I understood it. I was explained to me biblically, which I never learned that before. And it was easy to do, to kind of just start doing it. You accepted it, and that's what you did. And I think I told this story one time. I mean, there's many times where we've done something and got something back in return more than what we have donated. I mean, tithe to, or whatever we offered we gave. But one example I used, and I talked about it here, was when Dr. John was doing his first, I think it was in Pakistan, his first crusade, or call from here. And we made a donation so they could rent the place they were going to have the crusade. And it was a good sum. But then my wife, who'd worked for Walmart and Sam's Club, she was getting these things in the mail saying, "You have money in a 401k. And I kept telling her, "You need to call them." No, I can't have anything there. So finally she called them. It was like 10 to 11 times what we had given away, donated for the crusade. So, I mean, it was something we got back that was there that we didn't even know was there. It was there. So it made it so, God just showed us, here it is. You do what I want you to do, and I'll take care of it. So, I mean, that was just an example of how well tithing could work.
Growing up, I didn't know anything about tithing. I went to a Baptist church. I didn't know anything about the 10% right off the top. Give 10, live on 90. When I grew up, they had the collection plate going around, and you just put whatever was in there you had in your pocket or whatever, $1, $10, $20. You put it in the collection plate. That was it. But I didn't start tithing until around 2010, maybe a little after, when me and Sonia got married and started coming here. But I've been tithing faithful ever since. And even when times was hard, in the coal mines, business goes up, business goes down. When they were laying off and we was on idle, we never ran out of money. So just like I said, tithing, if you don't do it, start doing it, and you won't even notice. You really won't.
When I tithe, I think generosity. Like, I get to give, because tithing, it supports the work of the ministry. So when you give, it supports people to be able to do things here. But if we don't give, they're not supported. And I read a statistic: 13% of evangelicals tithe, only 13%. And I was thinking, well, no wonder we're not a powerhouse in the nation, making changes. When you give, you become like God. It'll change you, Don't really look at it like, hey, I give to get, like a contract. Like, hey, God, I gave you this. Where's it at? You become like him. I think the more that I learn about God is, he wants you to have his heart. So many people have his laws and his regulations, but they don't have his heart.
Good. So I think what Gary said was a great point, that tithing isn't about money. I mean, to us it may seem like a transactional dealing, but it's not about money. It's about your heart. It's about what's in your heart, right? When I tithe, it says God is the first thing in my mind. When you go and you drop off those weird boxes back there Mr. Newsom talks about sometimes, when he talks about our giving at the end of the service, or you go to the kiosk, or whatever you do. It's about your heart, right? Are you lined up with God? And in my family, we started tithing. As soon as we came back to Faith Church, we started tithing, and it was hard. And I know it's hard for you because you're so used to that particular money being there, and you're like, whoa, that's a big thing right there. We saw right off the bat, as soon as we tithed, how it changed our finances and how God increased every aspect of our life. Our finances got better. Our thoughts about money in general got better. anxiety lessened, worry reduced. Because now I've given it to God, and He's my source. And when you figure out He's your source, and you can live a lot better, and it's a challenging thought because it's totally upside down than what the world would tell you, right? How do you do that? How do you live on 90 when I can't live on 100? And I'm not bragging, but I'm bragging on God that we live very well at my house on 90, thanks to God. We live very well, and we're very blessed about the things that we have and the ability we've had over these years to pay things off and live debt-free now and increase our tithing beyond the 10%. And the more that we increase that, the more it's just returned back to us. And God sees the faithfulness that we know it's not about, like you mentioned, giving to get. It's not that. It's about what will God use this money for, right? What will God use this money for in our, we've given to local high schools. We've helped the mission. We've helped other churches. We just recently helped a church in St. Louis. We don't know those people. We know God. That's what God leads us to, right? So then we give to areas like that. And when the doctors want to go to Pakistan and they want to reach all these people, we're a part of that. We're a part of those souls that we reach. So being a faithful tither is vital. And like Mikey said, if you're not, start. Make the sacrifice and start. Get in it. God doesn't need your money. This church doesn't need your money. You need it for yourself to get plugged into God and get into God's heart so He can use you in other ways and be a part of that. What about being a faithful father? What does that look like? Just being a faithful father.
I guess a faithful father is, I'm going to go by the example I had from my father. I mean, he was just somebody that he never got excited, always stayed calm. And if he did get excited, you knew you really did something wrong. You were in trouble. But I kind of watched what he did. Where I grew up was my mom and dad's house started the row of houses. And then the next 9 houses were all family. It was either cousins, uncles, aunts, and then my grandparents were the last house. It was a farm that my grandfather and his 2 brothers had bought. And as the people married, they put, each gave their kids land, they built a house. So we were always raised around, my father, the family atmosphere, and you had all the other fathers watching you, so you weren't going to act up. Well, we all kind of stuck together. But as far as the faithful father, as my grandparents got older, my dad was taking care of my grandfather, and I kind of watched what he did, and he was faithful. He honored his mother and father. But the thing that got me was one day I was with my dad. I don't know how old I was, a teenager, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I was older. And he was helping my grandfather in the bathtub and helping him. And he looked up at me and he said, "Will you do this for me someday?" And man, that stuck in my mind. Would I do that? I would have. Because as I got older, my mom got cancer. I was single at the time. My dad was with her. I moved back in, helped take care of her, and then it was my dad till he passed away. So, you learn from examples what you see if you come from the right household. And I saw that, a faithful father. He did what he had to do. My dad actually had to take a job for 7 years where he lived away all week, and he came home on weekends. But he made sure he spent time with us, And it was a lot on my mother, but it's what he had to do for his family at the time until they got back to where he was working around home. So, but then as my example, I have a stepson, and as a lot of you know, we got along great, And then as he got older, got married, he moved away. There's been a falling out. We really don't have much to do with him. But we know he'll be back. He knows what the word is, and he'll be back.
I think probably the definition of faithful father is somebody that's there. I've always tried. I'm lucky. I don't do a lot of travel on my job or whatever, so I've always tried to be there for my family, for my kids. I want to say this. My father, those of you that knew him before he passed, he was here for a long time. Most everybody thinks he was, he's a great guy. He's a wonderful. He's funny. He's easy to talk to. He's a great guy, and he was a great father. I'm not going anywhere in that direction. But he was what he learned, what he knew about being a father is what he saw from his father. So as a father, again, he was a great father, but I wanted to be some, in the 70s when I grew up, things were changing a lot. And I wanted to be more, provide more, do more with my kids. So I learned things to do and how to handle that from here. I didn't read a book. I didn't do anything like that. I got it from here. I got it from seeing some of you guys. I got it from that. And I'm going to make a shameless plug here. I always do this. So if you've heard it, bear with me, but you got to get your kids here. I don't care if you could be an atheist. You got to get your kids here, because yes, they learn the Bible. They learn about God. They learn about Christian things, because this is a church. But they also learn honesty and integrity and common sense. And again, if you don't think if you don't think this church stuff is for you, okay, that's fine. But get your kids here, because it'll help. Back to the question. We were talking, another shameless plug. We have prayer on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7, and we had prayer this Wednesday, and one of the topics, they put topics up to pray about. One of the topics was this panel. So they asked my son Ethan to pray for this panel, and he starts going, and I'm thinking, geez, I started feeling convicted. He starts saying, make sure these guys take this seriously. Make sure they put the time in. Make sure they practice. Make sure they do. I thought, how do you practice this? What are you talking about? Jeez, I'm thinking, good grief. But then, last night I had the opportunity to spend some time with Ben, and he quizzed me about some of this stuff, and I thought, I felt kind of good about it. And this is one of the questions, obviously, and all I can say is I tried to be there. I was there as much as I could be. I tried to be, a part of what the things that they were involved in. I tried to be a little bit more than what my dad was. And I made mistakes. Okay, you saw them. Now fix them. And when you have your daughter, I hope you have an example that you can start with and then make it better. Because that's what we want, right?
Real quick, I was talking about this morning. I actually read the comics before I came. I had a little time, and there was a comic in there that showed it was a woman, but this could be a father, and she typed in on a chat GPT, says, how do I make my son clean up his room, do this and do that without hollering at him all the time? There was a pause, and they come back and says, I give up. I don't have an answer. So what I'm saying is, you can't go looking for those kind of things for answers. It's got to come from you, and you need to chat with God about some of these things. It's not just relying on what's out there, what you find on the internet. It's going to come down to you and what you need to do, and in your prayers, and who you talk to. You can get a lot of information right here in the church, people you could talk to find out things. So I just wanted to add that little piece I read this morning. I thought that was kind of funny and kind of appropriate to what goes on nowadays.
Growing up, my dad wasn't around, so having a faithful father, I didn't. Well, my grandfather, he was my faithful father. Me and him did everything. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be your father. It can be your grandfather, your uncle, your neighbor's dad, whoever it is. It doesn't have to be your biological father. It could be your stepfather. Just try to be the most influential person that you can be to your kids, your grandkids, or whatever. Set by example, lead by example, and hopefully they will follow at some point in their life. I mean, that's pretty much it. All you can do, and pray.
Well, Joseph, Jesus' father, he gets a really bad rap in the Bible. Actually, Jesus' lineage comes from Joseph. And it blew me away one day, and I remember I was reading it because I was a stepfather too. I got natural children, and I was a stepfather, and I remember God spoke to me one day and said, if he can do it, you can do it. Jesus' lineage literally comes through him. And Joseph was obedient. He protected Mary and him. An angel came to him in a dream and said, hey, I know you're nervous, but he said, you can take Mary home as your wife and care for her. And he did it. And then an angel visited him again and said, hey, you have to get out of here. Mary and the baby, they're going to kill the baby. You have to. It was in the middle of the night too. He got up and he woke her up. He said, hey, we have to leave. We have to get out of here. We're protectors as men. I see people out here. I saw a woman crying a couple weeks ago on the street corner. And so I'm always looking, not only my natural children, but who else can I father? Our greatest national security risk is not ISIS, it's not ISIL, it's fathers who aren't there, who abandon their children. That's our greatest to our nation. Miles Monroe probably gave the best Father's Day message I've ever heard. That's what he said. He said, it's the dads. You can link every problem in a society to a father not being there. And he said it's astronomical when the father's not there. You absolutely need a mother too. But man, he said fathers, he said you can link it to everything. I work in a prison, and man, I see people that just, I fought overseas, and some of the things I've seen in prison, they kind of, some of them are worse than what I see over there. I saw a young kid, he's from D.C., and they had to have been raping him. And I looked at him, and I couldn't get him out of my head, the vision of him. I've never seen somebody so hopeless, and so I started reading his case, and comes from a terrible home. And the judge told him, like, hey, you have some hope, you can change your life. But what they were doing to this kid, there was nobody to protect him, And as fathers, you have to be there for their kids. You don't give them what you didn't get. You give them what they need. Give them love, give them support, give them confidence, and just be there with them and for them.
Good. So those are great attributes you guys talked about, and echo a few things you guys said. I agree, Gary, that a faithful father isn't just committed to his children, especially at our realm here, right? We have to think outside the box about who else we can touch. We've got spiritual grandfathers in here. We've got spiritual men that will take a young man that comes into the church under his realm and try to guide them and love on them and give them things that they didn't have. And that's what we're looking for here. We're looking not only for your biological, but you've got to get outside your realm. And that's why we do these men's events, where we get outside of ourselves. We get out of our comfort zone, and we give a little time back, and we see, especially when we go to like the mission, or we go to these other churches, or we go someplace where they've never seen a man act in a way that was loving and kind. It was always, they saw a man who wanted something from them or did things that were horrible to them. And so that's why they have this countenance that's lost and hopeless, like Gary was saying. When I look at being a faithful father, I look at somebody who's committed, who's always there, who shows up. Again, we're not perfect. We've got to be there for our kids. We've got to be there for our children. My son will tell you I'm not perfect, but my son will also tell you that I coach his sports teams. I take him to work out, to get ready for those. I give away all the time that I could spend on doing something else to him. I bring him into this fold when we do our men's events because I want him to see what real men are actually like. And then that way he can share that with his friends and they can create this common group to help each other. The last thing I would say about a faithful father is he's legacy minded. So not only am I thinking about my son and what I want to teach him, I'm thinking about his kids. As I sow into him, like what Bill said earlier about take the good things that you saw in me, use them, take my weaknesses and my failures and build on them and give them that so they can push forward. And I think that's what we need to be thinking about as men is the legacy of moving forward to those future generations. When somebody asked me about how I can be involved so much, I told them when I had kids, I gave up myself for them. And I want to be there for them so they can see that and pass that attribute on down to that next generation. And they know that that's the way it should be done. All right, last question. And I know this will be a little shorter, but last question is a faithful Ironman member. What's that look like? Faithful Ironman member. So again, that Ironman, as they're picking up that, is what our group is called. We're the Ironmen. And that's what our men's group is called.
Us. I mean, really, it's not just us five right here, but all the men that come to our men's breakfasts or go down to the Union Mission for in October when we have the Socktober and feed the union the people there, and or we go help build a porch for someone, and just getting together and fellowshipping with each other and talking to each other and find out how each other's day is and if we can help each other in any way. So that's what our Ironman, faithful Ironman is.
I kind of agree with everything Mike said, but it's a time to get together. And a lot of times you might think, oh, why am I going to go out and do this? I got something else to do. But you go and you make the time to do it, to be with the other men of the church. But then once you're done, it's the satisfaction you get. You see what you've accomplished. You've talked, you have laughed, had food or whatever, just had a good time. And it's just a good way to start that day, or maybe to give up. You might give up part of a day or a whole day, but at the end of the day, you feel like you've accomplished something, feel satisfaction. So I think that's just another good thing that comes out of it. And then, like Derek brings Solomon there, other people bring their kids, they get to see men working together, and it's a good example for them. I think it's just, that's one of the other great things about it. Oh, sorry.
You got to get your coin. I don't know what else to tell you.
This is everything. Mike, what he said. Us. I mean, it's a group. What's the old saying? Many hands make the work lighter. That's the truth. And we don't always do work. When this first started, I wasn't a real big. I went to some of the things, but I didn't go to all. I didn't hit everything. Because when it comes to building things, I'm not very good at it, and I've had some disasters in my time because of projects that I've tried to take on. But it's not just that. I mean, we do the Socktober, and we cook for people at the mission, and we if somebody calls and says I need somebody to help move furniture. Whatever it is, we're there, and there's something that every one of you can do. You don't have to drive nails or stuff like that. There's something there, and it's a lot better when it's a group.
And like Bill said, I'm not the most handy person, but I've learned a lot of little things how to do certain things just from being there. I mean, be handing a hammer or carrying wood, but you do learn things how to fix some things. So it is an educational experience at times.
I think.
And backing on, not just the construction thing. You can ask my wife. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, but I have learned that being around these guys here is just about doing that. It's being together.
That's good right there. I think that what you guys just said was great. I think the biggest thing I was going to say earlier was it's the camaraderie, togetherness of men, same like-minded. We've got Christ focused in our heart. We've got what God wants us to do as our vision. And that's what we're working for when we do any type of men's group event that we do. We do spiritual, we have men's breakfast, we do social. We come together and throw some horseshoes, right? Might shoot a bow and arrow once in a while. And we do service events where we might go to a different church and work. We've been to Flemington, we did a church over in West Fairmont. We helped them out when the church was falling in. We helped them build on that. We've worked at the mission multiple times. They have a cold room over there. When it gets below 30 degrees, they have a place where people can come in off the streets. We built that for them. We built their educational room. We serve them every year. We do those events. And one of you just said it was the most important thing is I get more out of it than they do. Because your heart's touched, it's pulled. It shows you that you can work outside of yourself and you can be something other than just a guy who is a part of you're just a part of something. And you don't have to be a skilled carpenter or a layman in the church. You can just be a guy who wants to be a part of a group that's all like-minded, and you see that moving that way. So that's what that Iron Man movement is, and that's what this group of Iron Man is. We have about 30 regular attendees, which is pretty astronomical for the amount of men we have in this church. Always looking to grow, always looking for people to join us, because I think you'll find that you'll gain more out of it just by being present there. So I want to thank you guys for stepping in with me. We've got one big event left here to do right now, though, is I'm going to ask every man to come up here, and we're going to pray over you. And guys, we're going to kind of do this together. We're going to talk in Deuteronomy. So guys, if you don't mind stepping out of your seats, come on up. We're going to pray with you and pray for you. So I'm going to read this to you. If you fully obey the Lord God and carefully follow his commands I give you today, the Lord God will set you high above on all nations of the earth. All these blessings will come on you and accompany you in the obey the Lord God. You will bless the city and be blessed in the country. The fruit of your womb will be blessed, the crops of your land and young of the livestock, the calves, the herds, and the lambs, the flocks. This is Deuteronomy. Your basket and kneading will be blessed. You'll be blessed when you come in and blessed when you go out. The Lord will grant that enemies will rise up against you and defeated before you. They will come at you one direction, but flee in seven. The Lord will send a blessing in your barns and everything you put your hand to. The Lord will bless you in the land he is giving you. The Lord will establish his holy people, and as he promised you an oath, if you keep his commands of the Lord, walk in his obedience, then all the peoples of the earth will see you and call by the name of the Lord, and they will fear you. The Lord will grant you abundantly prosperity in the fruit of your womb, the young of your livestock, the crops of your ground, and the land that he swore to your ancestors to give you. The Lord will open up the heavens, the storehouses, and his bounty. He will send rain in the land in season and bless all the work of your hands. He will lend to many nations, but you will borrow from none. The Lord will make you the head, not the tail, if you pay attention to the commands of the Lord your God that I give you today and carefully follow them. You will always be at the top and never at the bottom. Do not turn aside from the other commands I give you today to the right or the left, follow the other gods and serving them. So, men, as you come up here today, this is not perfection that we're seeking here. None of us are perfect, nor will we ever be. but we want to strive to be closer to God, and we want to strive to be more like God, right? So I want to command a blessing over you. So, and let's stretch out our hands right this way. Yep. So all these men that were on stage, again, we're not perfect. They made mistakes. They didn't let the things in their past be a crutch for them, right? We've all been through things, but they've helped us to grow and to be stronger. So from this day forward, may God's hand of goodness rest on your life. May you experience His love, power, provision in everything that you touch. God sees you as grown men, and He's proud of you. You are beloved sons, and that's why He sees you today. Today, resolve to not live for ourselves, but to live for our families, our church, our community. We resolve to be more than what we are right now. Men, we are not going to waste this time. We're going to teach our children to follow Jesus. We're going to pray with our children. We're going to pray with our wives. Our jobs, our profession, our hobbies have no eternal value. But we're going to leave a godly legacy to our kids. I pronounce this over you today. May the Lord shine upon you and have peace on your life. In Jesus' name.